Okay, so officially welcome
Jono.
to the session. Thanks for joining us. We'll see if anyone else does, but let's go straight into it, shall we? So let's have a quick look at the quote. We normally do. Share my screen. So this quote actually could be straight out of A Course in Miracles, couldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was, actually, to start with.
No, it's a lady called Donna Goddard who writes spiritual type books. So maybe she studied the Course. But I mean, these principles are universal. No doubt many spiritual traditions understand that resentment and grievances do not make for peace and happiness. So you want to read that, and then we'll discuss briefly.
Every grievance you hold hides a little more of the light of the world from your eyes until the darkness becomes overwhelming. Everything you forgive restores that light. So ask yourself, who is it that you are really hurting?
Which is a good question.
Yeah.
Who am I really hurting here? I've got a grievance. I'm feeling angry. Well, who suffers? Ask Ramana's question. He asked us to Paramansa Yogananda. Who suffers? So right now, as I'm holding the grievance, who's suffering? Is it the person I'm holding the grievance against? Or is it myself, because I'm in a state of distress? I'm in a state of my peace being disturbed. I'm feeling unhappy. There's no peace and happiness in my mind. It's extraordinary that as human beings, we still do this, because it's so obvious. Well, I'm hurting myself here because I'm feeling right now, I'm not feeling happy. I'm not peaceful. But we forget. We just forget, and we go, oh no, that's someone else, and they've done it to me. And if I have this desire for revenge, say, that's going to make me feel better. That's what it feels like. That's what ego tries to convince you of. Of course, it's total lies, but you've got to be much more honest than your ego will like, because only if you're really honest and go, okay, so what am I really feeling, and who's really suffering here, and who am I really hurting? Then it becomes obvious that it's self-attack and self-harm. And so Jesus calls this thought system totally insane. Any thought system that attacks yourself itself is clearly insane, and can only be mad. Okay, so a little bit of that's yesterday's session, which you were in, so you know all about that. So let's go down to the lesson then. Okay, so you want to read the key idea in paragraph 1.
Holding grievances is an attack on God's love's plan for salvation awakening.
So it's returning to this theme of grievances, which we discussed a few lessons ago. There were 2 in a row. And I returns to it because it's a major theme.
Yeah.
And I was saying, well, there's some more mind training related to it that's necessary. Maybe you haven't quite recognized what's going on yet. So he teaches us.
While we have recognized that the ego's plan for salvation is the opposite of God's, we have not yet emphasized that it is an active attack on his plan and a deliberate attempt to destroy it. In the attack, God is assigned the attributes which are actually associated with the ego, while the ego appears to take on the attributes of God. Or, while we have recognized that the belief in separation's plan for awakening is the opposite of love's, we have not yet emphasized that it is an active attack on love's plan and a deliberate attempt to destroy it. In the attack, love, pure formless awareness, is assigned the attributes which are actually associated with the belief in separation. while the belief in separation appears to take on the attributes of love, pure formless awareness.
Okay. Does that make sense? Any comments, questions?
Well, he's just emphasizing that, you know, the ego's plan for salvation is, it's not just a self-destructive thing, it's an active attack on God and his plan. And God is in the attack, and it's just explaining that in the attack, God is assigned the attributes by the ego, which are normally associated to the ego, whilst the ego usurps the attributes of God.
Which of course makes no sense and isn't really possible, but that's what it tries to do.
Yeah.
Assign the attributes are actually associated with the belief in separation. So in this crazy conception, God becomes a very fearful, wrathful, vengeful God. That's what he means. So God's assigned these attributes which are actually associated with the belief in separation. So we have this false God we set up in our own image as a result of this belief, this fear and vengeance and attack. It's projected onto this false concept of God. Our belief in separation appears to take on the attributes of love. So the belief in separation says, I'll save you from this. I'll be your savior. Turn to me. And it's quite a convincing argument for some. He's going to unpack it and tell us why it's not to be listened to. Okay, happy with number one?
Yep. The ego's fundamental wish is to replace God. In fact, the ego is the physical embodiment of that wish. For it is that wish that seems to surround the mind with the body, keeping it separate and alone, and unable to reach other minds except through the body that was made to imprison it. Limit on communication cannot be the best means of to expand communication. Yet the ego would have you believe that it is. Or the belief in separation's fundamental wish is to replace love, pure formless awareness.
So we just unpack it line by line as you go.
Yeah, so the belief in separation's fundamental wish is to replace pure formless awareness.
So it's a substitute, it's a covering over. It wants you to believe in this, in its idea of separation, rather than oneness and the pure formless awareness.
Yeah.
State of mind.
In fact, the body is the physical embodiment of that wish. And the body.
Notice I changed that just in case you missed it. Was that wish that seems to surround the mind with the body. So I changed it to the body is the physical embodiment. Like the ego is the physical. He said here the ego is the physical embodiment, which doesn't really make sense because the ego, the projection of the ego is an idea. So I thought the body was a more suitable. The body is the physical embodiment of that wish. That makes more sense, I think.
Yeah.
And he goes on to explain that.
For it is that wish that seems to surround the mind with the body, keeping it separate and alone, and unable to reach other minds except through the body that was made to imprison it. So he's saying here that the creation of the body by the ego is a means of limiting our communication and restricting us and making us believe that we are separate. It's the embodiment of our separateness.
Yeah. The body is a projection of the mind's belief in separation. Physical embodiment of the wish to be separate. And the ego would tell you that this is this is the best way to communicate. And the belief in separation is wrong. Because minds can communicate directly.
Interesting, this comment, the limit on communication cannot be the best means to expand communication.
Yeah, because it's designed as a limit. So he's asking us to go beyond these limits into the mind and change our minds, correct our perceptions. And then the body can be a useful instrument of that change of mind, because one can speak it, you can act in certain ways. So given to the Holy Spirit, it's useful. But the fundamental change comes in the mind rather than in the body. The body's just an instrument. And really what he's trying to teach us is that, the body is nothing. So don't give it a seeming will and intelligence. As many people say, well, my body, my body feels this, or my body wants this. And of course, that's giving the body some kind of intelligence, some kind of will that now seems to be apart from pure formless awareness, doesn't it? Which is the ego's trick. It's always trying to get you to identify with this hunk of flesh and say, this is you. You're not a mind anymore, you're a body. This is you, this is your true identity. And forget the fact that you're a mind. Believe that you're a body, because that makes the belief in separation true. Guaranteed true. If you believe you're a body, then you must believe you're separate. It's a done deal.
Yeah.
So that's how it works. He's asking us to question it at its foundation. Let's look at the body. What is this body thing? And as he says, question honestly, much more honestly than the ego would like you to. But this is how we undo it, through this questioning of the illusions. Okay?
Yeah.
You happy with number 2?
Yeah. Although the attempt to keep the limitations that the body would impose is obvious here, perhaps not so apparent why holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. But let us consider the kinds of things you are apt to hold grievances for. Are they not always associated with something a body does? A person says something you do not like. He does something that displeases you. He betrays his hostile thoughts in his behavior. Or, although the attempt to keep the limitations that the body would impose is obvious here, it is perhaps not so apparent why holding grievances is an attack on love's plan for awakening. But let us consider the kinds of things you are apt to hold grievances for. Are they not always associated with something a body does? A person says something you do not like. He does something that displeases you. He betrays his hostile thoughts in his behavior.
Okay. Thoughts on that?
I was trying to just explain this idea of why holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. Saying that, it's evidenced by the fact that we see all these errors, all these wrongdoings in the form of a body. either something the body does or says or doesn't do.
And then the ego gets us to focus on what he or she has done in a body. Look at what they did. Look at what she said, and and so on. And so that's focusing on the error, what the body's done, rather than on what lies beyond the body, which is the ego's plan for forgiveness. Focus on the error, make it real, and then try and overlook it. Because what you've done then is, in your perception, made the body real through the perception of the error as being done by a body. So very sneaky. It's very cunning. This whole body idea, and without the body, the ego would be nothing, wouldn't it? Would it? I mean, how could you believe in separation if you didn't have a body?
Yeah.
And what would you then interact with the apparent other people, apparently other separate people with, if you didn't have a body? It would just be mind. And no mind, incorporeal mind, naturally will realize that it's one. So there won't be all the temptation to believe that it's a body. So as he says, the body is just temptation. It's the ego's temptation to believe in separation when you believe in the reality of the body. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. He's just saying, let's consider, what the ego does, and are these things that you hold grievances for not always associated with something the body does? And then he continues to explain it in number 4.
You are not dealing here with what the person is. On the contrary, you are exclusively concerned with what he does in a body. You are doing more than failing to help in freeing him from the body's limitations. You are actively trying to hold him to it by confusing it with him and judging them as one. Herein is God attacked. For if his son is only a body, you must be as well. Creator wholly unlike his creation is inconceivable.
Okay, and then alternatively, and then just stop after each sentence, and we'll just unpack it. You're going to read the alternative, John?
Yep. You are not dealing here with what the person is. On the contrary, you are exclusively concerned with what he does in the body. You are doing more.
Just pause there. So he's asking us to look at this idea that the body is doing it, and in doing this, then you're doing more than. Carry on.
You are doing more than failing to help in freeing him from the body's limitations. You are actively trying to hold him to it by confusing it with him and judging them as one. Saying here that if we see another as purely a body, then we are limiting them.
Yeah. Judging that person as a body and confusing it with who he really is, which is a massive confusion in identity, misidentification. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Let me continue.
You are actively trying to hold him to it by confusing it with him and judging them as one. So we're by condemning him as a body and being limited, we are limiting them. And in so doing, are we attacking God because our fellow, our brother, is the extension of God.
Herein is love, pure formless awareness attack. For its extension is only a body, so must it be as well. So if we judge a body as real, then we must believe that God, love, is only a body, which of course is bizarre. It's not when he puts it like this, you go, really? That's what I'm believing when I hold a grievance? But this is what's happening actually in our minds. Because a being wholly unlike its extension is inconceivable. So I just changed that creator and creation to a being wholly unlike its extension. So you must perceive that God, this creative source, is like its extensions. And so if you believe in the body and in this world, then your conception of God must be a fearful, wrathful, punishing, vengeful God, which we do see in history. That's the societies are very identified with form and the body, and the survival of the body. Then generally create this kind of a God, the God of the Old Testament. And the Israelites were very concerned with the survival of their bodies. They were trying to conquer new territory. They were trying to win over other warring tribes, and all of this was about the body being surviving, the body conquering, the body being the victor. And so then you invent a very fearful, wrathful, vengeful God. You cannot conceive of a being that's wholly unlike its extension. So God becomes a body in your mind, which is bizarre, but that's what the ego does.
Yeah.
So he's just really breaking down these grievances. Okay, so let's really look at this piece by piece, analyze it, and then you'll see just the bizarreness of this thought system. It really doesn't make any sense to believe that you're a body, and this is what it does if you do believe it to your mind. Okay, do you want to give a little summary of number 4? We'll move on.
Well, it's saying, please don't confuse your brother with his body, because if you do so, you will be limiting him and attacking God and limiting yourself.
And we make the mistake of believing that God is like us, like a body. So then the ego, what is actually the ego, coming from the belief in separation, seems to become like God. So the ego's usurped God in this role reversal, which is what he was saying in the previous paragraph. Okay, happy with that?
Yeah.
Number 5.
If God is a body, what must his plan for salvation be? What could it be but death? In trying to present himself as the author of life and not of death, he is a liar and a deceiver, full of false promises and offering illusions in place of truth. The body's apparent reality makes this view of God quite convincing. In fact, if the body were real, it would be difficult indeed to escape this conclusion. And every grievance that you hold insists that the body is real. It overlooks entirely what your brother is. It reinforces your belief that he is a body and condemns him for it. And it asserts that his salvation must be death, projecting this attack onto God, and holding him responsible for it.
Okay.
Well, it's saying that.
We'll just stop it at each sentence or two.
If flow of pure formless awareness is a body, what must its plan for awakening be? what could it be but death? In trying to present itself as the author of life and not of death, it is a liar and a deceiver, full of false promises and offering illusions in place of truth.
Okay. Stop it there. Thank you. So, any thoughts on that?
Well, it's just kind of going further into this idea of confusing the body takes us down the wrong path. And if we were to do that, then we are confusing it. Well, it's saying if the body were what we're making it out to be, that would be a logical conclusion. But every grievance that we hold, every grievance we hold reinforces this idea that the body is real.
Yeah, and then the idea that death is real, and God is a liar and a deceiver.
Yeah.
So promising a life, but actually in the end giving death, offering illusions in place of truth. And so this is how the ego's usurped the idea of God, and this is what grievances do, what they confirm in our mind. So he's really going, into the depths of what the grievance is and what it does, to unpack it and say, look, this is by holding one grievance, this is what you're doing, which is very revealing. I've never seen grievances unpacked to this level in any other teaching.
Yeah.
So this is actually what's happening.
And of course, in the next chapter after this, he talks about illness and how grievances spread into illness.
Yeah, which we do see a lot. I mean, people are very unhappy. They have a lot of anger and resentment. Then they tend to get sick. They hold that for years because that energy makes the body sick.
Yeah.
Body's apparent reality makes this view quite convincing. So it's a setup. The ego seemingly made the body real. It's projected it out of your mind. Seemingly, you can see it, feel it, touch it, taste with it, smell, and all these things. And so in your perception, this is all real. And then you believe in the reality of the body, then you must believe in all of this that he's just said. What could God be but the author of death? He's actually the author of death.
Yeah.
Because remember, the ego is a death wish. It actually wants to kill you. Okay, I want to continue. I think you're halfway through.
The body's apparent reality makes this view of love, pure forms of awareness, quite convincing. In fact, if the body were real, it would be difficult indeed to escape this conclusion. And every grievance that you hold insists that the body is real. It overlooks entirely what your brother is. It reinforces your belief that he is a body and condemns him for it. And it asserts that his awakening must be death, projecting this attack onto love, pure forms of awareness, and holding it responsible for it.
Okay. So the last couple of sentences make sense.
We're saying the natural conclusion of is death.
Yeah. So every grievance reinforces your belief that he's a body, and then condemns him for it, and asserts that his awakening must be death. Wow. So I've changed salvation to the word salvation to awakening, but in that context, you're like, it's obviously bizarre, isn't it? How can your awakening be death? Projecting this attack onto love or pure formless awareness, and holding it responsible for it. Projecting this attack onto God. So this false concept of God, and holding now God responsible for it. So this false belief in death and attack gets projected out onto this fearful, wrathful, vengeful God. Let's have a little look at our lesson, I think, at our diagram. Where are we? And 19, I think. So that's why we have over here a concept of a fearful, wrathful, separate God. Because this all gets projected out, the guilt, the sin, the fear gets projected out into this concept of a false God. And the false God is now responsible for the attacks and the fear, and seems to be very harsh and cruel. But all of this is just a projection of our own minds. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's good.
So this is how the ego has now become God in our misconception. And God is now responsible for attack and death. But it's a false God. It's invented in our own image from the belief in separation. We've invented this false God that now is usurped or replaced the true love, unconditional love and pure formless awareness that really is there. That's true reality. Okay?
Yeah.
Happy with number 5? Want to give a little summary of that?
Well, I think he's saying that saying if God is a body, then, well, I mean, it isn't a body. So he's saying if God were a body, then you could understand why he would be viewed as wrathful and vengeful, but in fact he isn't, because it's a projection.
Yeah. So this is what hangs on the concept of the body is real or not, which is actually very deep, profound, quite extraordinary. So our normal perception, most people see their other people as bodies. That's just seems to be normal. But he's saying, if you believe that, then you must believe in a God that is the author of death and not life. And
Just sobering thought.
That is vengeful and attacking.
Yeah.
And this is really the false concept that underlies our entire world, our entire society. So it's no wonder it doesn't work. So that's lurking at the back of your mind, in your belief system, and then you're trying to make this belief system work. no wonder that it doesn't work, and that we keep getting more of the same. We keep getting attack and fear and death and hatred showing up in the dream, because this is what the ego is. This is what it wants. And the traditional religious versions of a fearful, wrathful God are just part of that. They don't help at all. There's no true salvation or awakening in that. It actually asserts that awakening must be death. So ultimately, from the conception of sin and guilt and fear and attack, the end result of that is death. So really, although these religions they talk about eternal life, actually they believe in death. If you believe in sin and guilt and fear and attack, you believe in death, not life. So the eternal life is like a distant dream, distant possibility. And we talk about it, but actually what you're believing in is death. Which is why there's such a heaviness and a darkness to it. If they're really rooted in the idea of sin and guilt, and then they are thought systems based on death and a death wish rather than life. Even if they might talk about eternal life in the context of Jesus came to show us eternal life, and it's so remote and distant that it doesn't really help. Okay, happy with number 5?
So is that essentially saying that the ego creates the body in order to convince us that we are limited and gives us something to pin the grievances on, really? And
yeah, it's a very ingenious thought system.
yeah,
You see how it's all interwoven. It makes the body real. So then you have to conceive of your creator as being a body. You have to conceive of this wrathful, vengeful, fearful God that's going to punish and condemn the body, because that's what seems to happen to bodies. They all get old and they die. And this becomes the concept of your creator and of yourself, which keeps you away from this unconditional love or pure formless awareness that has nothing to do with any of these illusions. That's completely opposite and in another part of your mind. And this is what the ego's done by creating the body, and then this whole crazy mad dream shown in this red scrum. Like, okay, well, you believe all of this, and now you have to project your guilt outwards. So this is what a grievance is. It's a projection of the guilt outwards onto someone else, so that you can escape from this terrible vengeance that you fear that comes from this false god. That's what you're trying to do. Whenever I hold a grievance, I'm trying to project my blame onto someone else and get rid of it, so that they're the guilty ones. And then in my mind, then I'm off the hook, and they to blame. And God, this false God, of course, fearful, wrathful, vengeful God, is going to get them and punish them and not me. And so that's why we're addicted to grievances, because it's a way the ego is telling us we can offload our guilt and we can get rid of it. But in truth, we can't, because the more you give guilt, the more you're saying I have it to give, and of course, guilt reinforces sin. Guilt and sin go together, and they underpin the individual self. So you see how one belief leads to another, and then leads to a whole system of thought. It results in these, grievances and attack and fear, anger and hatred, and it's just just coming from a tiny mad idea. All of it. That's not true. Which is what he's trying to show us here. Okay, does that make sense?
Yep, that's good.
So number 6.
To this, we haven't done the top one of 6, have we?
Oh, sorry, I went down too far. Yeah. Yeah.
To this carefully prepared arena where angry animals seek for prey and mercy cannot enter, the ego comes to save you. God made you a body. Very well. Let us accept this and be glad. As a body, do not let yourself be deprived of what the body offers. Take the little you can get. God gave you nothing. The body is your only savior. It is the death of God and your salvation. To this carefully prepared arena where angry animals seek to prey and mercy cannot enter, the belief in separation comes to save you. Love, pure formless awareness, made you a body. Very well. Let us accept this and be glad. As a body, do not let yourself be deprived of what the body offers. Take the little you can get. Love, pure formless awareness, gave you nothing. The body is your only awakener. It is the death of love, pure formless awareness, and your awakening.
Okay, so any thoughts on that? Unpack
Well,
that.
interesting idea that the ego then comes along to, once we've accepted that we are bodies, it comes along and to save us, and is saying, well, take what you can. You don't get very much. Take what you can. Your body is the only way. The only measure of what you can get.
So become attached to the body and the body's pleasures, the body's comforts. Obviously, material possessions come into that. Special relationships. I need another body to be with me, and so all the illusions perpetuate. Accept that you're a body. If you accept you're a body, then what is there to do but to avoid pain in the body, which is always a possibility, and seek pleasure. This is how most people live their lives. Seek pleasure, avoid pain, and yet it seems like the more we do that, it's not really working to bring us any kind of happiness. Seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. If that was actually the formula for happiness, then it would be very simple. Oh well, that's just so obvious then. But it's not. The Buddha noted: the more you seek pleasure, the more you desire, the more unhappy you actually are. It doesn't fulfill your soul. Doesn't really bring any kind of lasting happiness. Because you desire and grievances go hand in hand. The more I desire things, so you see how it all fits together. The ego's thought system is very cunning. You believe you're a body, then you must desire what the body can have, comforts of the body, pleasure, and avoiding pain. And so now you're into craving and aversion. Right? So you crave certain things, you desire certain things, you have an expectation, and that's going to be disappointed time and time again. If your expectation is not met, then you have a grievance because my expectation is not met. So I set up an expectation, it's not met, then I hold a grievance and I project all of that outside me and I say it's someone else's fault because they didn't do what they should have done.
Yeah.
Or I blame God. You see, so you see how it's all desire and expectation and grievances are really connected. And really, a grievance isn't just against a person. A grievance is any sense of aversion, resistance that we have. So if we have an expectation that's not met, even if it has nothing to do with the person, let's say I really expected, it's my birthday and I really expect it to be a nice day, and then it's a bad day and it's raining, and then I have a grievance against the weather.
Yeah.
And so then we've created another grievance, which resists pure love or pure formless awareness, and confirms that the body is real, this reality is real, ultimately confirms death is real. And it's all part of the same thought system.
Yeah. Can we just go back to the diagram, the descent into hell, John?
Yeah.
Let's just see if I can summarize to you what's going on here.
Okay.
So we're in pure formless awareness, and this is, I mean, and we actually remain in pure formless awareness. We are always in pure formless awareness, but we imagine that we have a thought of separation. So we don't actually have it, but we have this. We imagine that we have an idea of separation, and and that idea of separation develops. We get more sophisticated in our thinking, in our individual thinking, and we begin to believe that we are separate. So the turning point is that we actually believe we are separate, but we can only actually convince ourselves that we are separate if we convince ourselves that God is outside and is nothing to do with us, because we actually have created our own little universe. So we are convinced we are separate. We convince ourselves that we are separate. We're doing our own thing, and then we get this sudden idea that, oh, I am guilty because I have actually killed off God. I have actually turned my back on God. And at that moment, we can't bear the guilt, so we have to cast it out onto others. It's at this moment that we create bodies, and because bodies are very useful tools for hanging grievances on and making the whole passing grievances around. We can also destroy ourselves if we want to recreate a body, and part of this projection out is that God must be wrathful. Our fear is that God is wrathful, will come and catch us out. So although we're kind of doing all this projecting out, still live in fear that God will find us out and come and punish us.
Yeah.
So there we are, putting all these projections out, afraid that we're going to get caught out, convince ourselves that because the others are at fault, God will actually take it out on them and we'll get off free.
Yeah. That's a reasonable summary. And some of the intricacies of this are the idea that you're now a body seems to confirm the separation, doesn't it? So very ingeniously, the ego's embodied itself. The wish to be separate has embodied itself as a body with other bodies, apparently, that seem to be real. And now the temptation is to project our guilt onto those other bodies and say, you're to blame, I'm not to blame, and that's the addiction to grievances, because it helps us to seemingly get rid of our guilt while at the same time maintaining the belief in separation. So the ego says, well, you can have your cake and eat it. Someone else is guilty. They're the guilty ones. You're off the hook. And all you've got to do is give them the guilt. So hold the grievance against them. And then you'll be saved. Which, of course, doesn't work because it just confirms that you're guilty. And the more guilty you feel, the more you fear punishment, the more this idea of a fearful, wrathful, vengeful God outside of you is true, and you're not happy. The more guilty you are, the unhappier you're going to be. And you can keep trying to do this until eventually, as this helpless, living this helpless, enervated little life, you say, no, it's just This is too much. It's too. I'm just miserable. I'm unhappy. And then you have to start questioning the entire thought system. You can't just go, well, maybe a grievance isn't true. Maybe, it goes like, if you start questioning this, then you have to unpack the whole thing, don't you? It's okay. So let's go all the way to the origin of this and unpack it at its origin and recognize that it's just a tiny mad idea of separation that I've believed in. That's the problem. I have one problem. The problem is not what my brother does in the world. The problem is my belief in separation through which I interpret what my brother does. That's the problem. So as David Hoffman says, you have a perceptual problem, a fundamental perceptual problem. And these lessons are designed to correct that fundamental perceptual problem so that you don't see incorrectly, so that you undo all of this in your perceiving of anyone in any situation. Okay, makes sense. I think you explained that pretty well.
Yeah.
I think you're kind of getting it. It's sort of sinking in.
Yeah, good at last. Yeah, good.
Okay, so happy with number 6?
Yeah.
Number 7?
This is the universal belief of the world you see. Some hate the body and try to hurt and humiliate it. Others love the body and try to glorify and exalt it. But while the body stands at the center of your concept of yourself, you are attacking God's plan for salvation, holding your grievances against him and his creation. That you may not hear the voice of truth and welcome it as your friend. Your chosen Savior takes his place instead. It is your friend. He is your enemy. Or, this is the universal belief of the world you see. Some hate the body and try to hurt and humiliate it. Others love the body and try to glorify and exalt it. But while the body stands at the center of your concept of yourself, you are attacking God's plan for awakening and holding your grievances against it and its extension, that you may not hear the voice of truth and welcome it as a friend. Your chosen awakener takes its place instead. It is your friend, pure formless awareness, is your enemy. So it's saying the more we preoccupy ourselves with the body in whatever form, we are denying love's plan for awakening. We are denying our own transformation. We are making God our enemy.
Holding your grievances against it and its extension. So this false idea of God then replaces the truth, and it's all designed to block this awareness. So that's all that's going on here. This pure formless awareness, the blue, is being blocked by all the red, the mad red ideas. We get caught up in this, and this pure formless awareness, which is just pure formless, there's just awareness, it's so simple, is denied continuously by what the mind's invented here. And so it's the veil of illusion pulled over the mind to blind it to the truth of its true nature, its true awareness. And this is all perpetuated by grievances. That's what he's saying. So grievances actually are an attack on this. Grievances attack love and its plan for salvation. Because love's plan is simply that you drop all of these crazy ideas, return your mind to it. This is the at one-man process. So all of this just blocks that. A grievance blocks all of this. So one grievance, so why you need to be really vigilant, because one grievance held against anyone or anything makes the entire ego's thought system real. And so now you're caught up in it, and there seems to be no escape. If you're in that grievance, you're trapped in this, really dreadful nightmare, without a seeming escape. And the ego's the ego's hope that it holds out for you is, well, you can project the guilt onto someone else, and they'll be the guilty ones. So carry on holding the grievance. In fact, nurture that grievance and make it even worse, because this is working. Of course, it's a dead end. You're going nowhere. It's an impossible situation to which the ego always leads you, and there's no way out of this trap, unless you let go of the grievance and you question the whole thought system and drop it and say, well, the only answer is to go return my mind to love or pure formless awareness. Okay, so happy with that?
Yeah.
Number 8.
We will try today to stop these senseless attacks on salvation. We will try to welcome it instead. Your upside-down perception has been ruinous to your peace of mind. You have seen yourself in a body and the truth outside you, locked away from your awareness by the body's limitations. Now we are going to try and see things differently. We will try today to stop these senseless attacks on awakening. We will try to welcome it instead. Your upside-down perception has been ruinous to your peace of mind. You have seen yourself in a body and the truth outside you, locked away from your awareness by the body's limitations. Now we are going to try to see this differently.
Okay, and that could actually be perception. Could have changed that. So you've perceived yourself in a body and the truth outside you. Now we're going to try to perceive this differently. And he even talks about perception. So stop these senseless attacks on awakening. Because that's really what you're doing. You're attacking your own awakening and denying it and preventing it. So the only thing that's going to help you is what you're attacking. Which doesn't make any sense. So we'll try to welcome it instead. Okay, so number 9.
The light of truth is in us, where it was placed by God. It is the body that is outside us and is not our concern. To be without a body is to be our natural state. To recognize the light of truth in us is to recognize ourselves as we are. To see ourselves as separate from the body is to end the attack on God's plan for salvation and to accept it instead. Wherever his plan is accepted, it is accomplished already. Or, the awareness of truth is in us, where it was placed by love, pure formless awareness. It is the body that is outside us and is not our concern. To be without a body is to be in our natural state. To recognize the awareness of truth in us is to recognize ourselves as we are. To see ourselves as separate from the body is to end the attack on love's plan for awakening and to accept it instead. And wherever its plan is accepted, it is accomplished already.
Okay. Happy with that? Any thoughts?
Yeah. Well, it's saying, acknowledge that we are much more, the light of truth in us, our real selves is not the body. And the body is outside of us, really. And we recognize the truth of what we really are.
To be without a body is to be in our natural state. So this goes against what a lot of spiritual teachings teach, because they talk about body, mind, and soul or spirit. And so it's about all of those being real. That's really the conception. The body is real, but the mind is also part of it, and the soul, and somehow that's got to be some kind of unity. Body, mind, and soul all in kind of in unification. And Jesus is saying, no, you can't believe in a body and also be in the spirit, because the spirit is pure formless awareness, which doesn't know of a body. So you can't accept the body and not split your mind.
Yeah.
Which is a simple truth that most teachings and teachers miss. And then they try and justify the body, make it real, and say, oh, well, but we have a soul, and the soul resides in the body, and the soul's also important. That's kind of, okay, well, which is it then? Which is it? And I listened to that. I don't know if you watched the video that I posted. So it was a good message. The guy was saying, well, you can have your body, and that's all okay, and you can value your body and value possessions, but don't forget your soul. Your soul's actually the most important. But it's like clearly there's a contradiction there. So both of these things are then real, and of course you're not gonna really perceive your soul, in cosmological terms, that's your mind, as the only truth if you still believe in the body. Of course not. You're going to deny it. So it's one or the other. You can't accept the body and also accept yourself as pure formless awareness. They are irreconcilable beliefs. And that's what he's saying here. To recognize the awareness of truth in us, just to recognize ourselves as we are. And to see ourself, capital Self, as separate from the body is to end the attack on love's plan for awakening. So see yourself as outside of the body. The body's actually got nothing to do with your true reality at all. And then, then you accept the truth. And you end the attack on love's plan for awakening. So again, it's not an uncompromising stand he's taking. Saying, look, this is what you have to believe and see. If you believe in the body in any way, shape, or form, then you're denying the truth of who you are. You're denying love's plan for awakening, and that's going to keep you in this nightmare of grievances and guilt and fear and sin, and there seems to be no escape. And so just accept it, and wherever it's accepted, it's accomplished already. So the moment you accept this and say, yes, oh, okay, thank goodness, I'm not a body. I'm actually just love, pure formless awareness. And I'm willing to just drop my thoughts and emotions, body thoughts and emotions. Then it's done, because I'm in this awareness again. Okay, so any questions about that? Makes sense? You want to summarize number 9 for us? This is quite an important paragraph.
Well, it's just emphasizing the importance of seeing ourselves as mind rather than body, and that the body is outside of us. It's not integral to our real being. It's not part of our natural state.
Yeah, and one more point, it says to see ourselves as separate from the body. Just to end the attack.
Yes.
So we actually have to go, okay, I'm not a body. And our later workbook lessons, he says, I'm not a body, I'm free. Gets us to repeat that.
Oh, yes.
Review 20 times. I'm not a body, I am free, for I'm still as God or love created me. Because we have to accept that that's the truth. Otherwise, we maintain the belief in the body, we maintain the belief in grievances, because if I'm a body, other people are bodies, then what the body does to me, to my body, is real, and so it goes. See, you can't accept the ego's thought system partially. If you accept some of it, you have to accept all of it. And so he's saying you have to lay all of this aside and say, no, I'm not a body. This is the only way. You make the body real in any sense, and you fudged it, and you actually haven't done anything. You're still in the split mind, which is why so many spiritual teachings, if they make the body real, they're really teaching nothing. There's no resolution there. There's no salvation, because they're teaching the body's real. So then they're teaching grievances and death and sin and fear and everything that goes with the conception of a body is real, and that denies any transcendent awareness. So you can't fudge it and say, well, yes, we believe in a body, but also in some kind of soul, transcendent mind or spirit, because they contradict each other.
Yeah.
Which is what he's saying. Okay, happy with number 9?
Yeah. Our goal in the longer practice period today is to become aware that God's plan for salvation has already been accomplished in us. To achieve this goal, we must replace attack with acceptance. As long as we attack it, we cannot understand what God's plan for us is. We are therefore attacking what we do not recognize. Now we are going to try to lay judgment aside and ask what
No,
God's
they're
plan
away.
for us is.
They've gone visits. They've gone out. Sorry, John. They've
All right.
gone out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was an article from my mom and some beetroot.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll leave it in front.
Yeah, just leave it on the table. Sorry, I just had a visit of my parents.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.
What is salvation, Father? I do not know. Tell me that I may understand. Then we will wait in quiet for his answer. We have attacked God's plan for salvation without waiting to hear what it is. We have shouted our grievances so loudly that we have not listened to his voice. We have used our grievances to close our eyes and stop our ears. Or, our goal in the longer practice period today is to become aware that love's plan for awakening has already been accomplished in us. To achieve this goal, we must replace attack with acceptance. As long as we attack it, we cannot understand what love's plan for us is. We are therefore attacking what we do not recognize. Now we are going to try to lay judgment aside, ask what love's plan for us is. What is awakening, my source? I do not know. Tell me that I may understand. Then we will wait in quiet for its answer. We have attacked love's plan for awakening without waiting to hear what it is. We have shouted our grievances so loudly that we have not listened to its voice. We have used our grievances to close our eyes and stop our ears.
Okay, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I like it that it's, we're kind of stopping the pattern and asking pure forms of awareness to tell us who we are, what we are.
So this is sort of true prayer. Just go in and ask. So we've denied this through our grievances, shouted our grievances so loudly that we've denied this presence. And true prayer is just going, okay, I'm going to go within, and by asking a question, what is awakening, my Father or my source? Your mind is going within and saying, okay, so let me listen. Let me just be still and listen without my own judgments and grievances. And if I'm in that quiet state, then this presence will arise. And this voice, we may not hear it as a voice, it's just terminology, but we hear it as, we feel it sometimes. We just know it. There's some kind of presence there that speaks to us, gets translated into thought and emotion in our minds. And, this is the voice of the Holy Spirit, the awareness of oneness, the remembrance of this presence. Is then say, oh, okay, finally, you're actually being quiet and you're willing to listen. And when you do that and you ask for the answer, then this presence comes. You've invited it in, so it arises in your awareness. And so that's what these little mind training exercises are designed to do, give you the space to say, okay, so let's just go in and ask and listen, silence, be still and listen, wait in quiet for its answer, rather than telling it and saying, well, this is how it is, and being busy with mind. It's the quietness, the emptiness, which is a major spiritual practice. Quietness and silence are well known, that if you spend a lot of time in quiet contemplation, in silent meditation, if you prefer the sort of meditative idea rather than just contemplation, that you will have different thoughts and different feelings. So most of the paths, most of the spiritual teachings and paths, have prayer or meditation as spiritual practices for this reason, so that you can go in and quiet your mind and just listen. And then you see that there's something else. There's another presence. It's not just the body and grievances. There's something deeper than that. Okay, so number 11.
Now we would see and hear and learn, what is salvation, Father? Ask and you will be answered. Seek and you will find. We are no longer asking the ego what salvation is and where to find it. We are asking it of truth. Be certain then that the answer will be true because of whom you ask. Or, now we would see and hear and learn, what is awakening, my source? Ask and you will be answered. Seek and you will find. We are no longer asking the belief in separation what awakening is and where to find it. We are asking it of truth. Be certain then that the answer will be true because of whom you ask.
Okay, any thoughts on that?
I think it's an expression of determination of asking and determination of prayer, I suppose. Determination of connection with pure formless awareness. Awakening.
So ask and you'll be answered, seek and you'll find, knock and the door will be opened. Quote from the Bible. This is what he's saying. If you go within and you ask, then you will start to receive true answers. But you cannot ask it of the ego. You must quiet all of that and let that go, and ask it from this deeper part of your mind. Okay. So read number 12.
Whenever you feel your confidence wane and your hope of success flicker and go out, repeat your question and your request, remembering that you are asking of the infinite, creator of infinity, who created you like himself. What is salvation, Father? I do not know. Tell me that I may understand. He will answer, be determined to hear. Whenever you feel your confidence wane and your hope of success flicker and go out, repeat your question and your request, remembering that you are asking of the infinite extender of infinity, which extended you like itself. What is awakening, my source? I do not know. Tell me that I may understand. It will answer, be determined to hear.
It's a very simple practice, but very, very powerful. Just to ask the question, and then listen. Okay, I'm going to ask, and then I'm just going to be quiet and listen.
I think you've frozen, Jono. Or I've lost connection.